Okay, if you're still interested in using ChatGPT, or I mean, maybe you go home and code it yourself. Well, anyway, I'll talk about the actual ChatGPT and try to give my point of view of how we can use it as a software developer. Let's see. My name is Sten Hougaard, and of course this image is not me, but it's generated from a trained model. And I'm a front-end developer here at this unit. I have been making a number of web apps using ChatGPT, and while I was paying to be a Plus member, so I didn't have to wait for the prompts to be faster. Actually, some of them I put on a website called CodePen, and I asked ChatGPT to do as an app I thought could be funny, and then it generated the code, and I gave it some advice to do some fixes and put it on CodePen. And then when I got the newsletter from CodePen, I saw my pen was in it. So everybody in the world have seen me doing something which I didn't do. But actually, I told it it's not done by me. But the blog post I also did. I also asked it, now that you've done the code, please write a blog post about it. So I put it on Dev2. And so I have it next time I need to do that same thing. I can just go and see my documentation there and see the running example, and other people can enjoy it. You can find me on Twitter if you want after this. So the things I've chosen to talk about is the fact that we all need help as developers. We cannot contain the whole thing like ChatGPT can. So through time, we have always got some help. Then I want to give some example of this wise new friend we've got. And I'll also take a look at this subject, generative AI and software development. And finally, I'll try to get some other angles. So through the time, we have not been coding alone. We have always been together with our colleagues. And the first place we got help was probably to ask a colleague. So how do I do this? So that's just a tool we are used to do. That's why we go to this place and ask other people to find some solutions. So we always need a little help from our friends. And this album, of course, is also generated using generative AI. I just put the album cover from into Midjourney and ask it, please, what would I need to write to get this image? And then I clicked on number 2, and here I got it. So yeah, sometimes we also get some intelligence in our Visual Studio Code or whatever we are coding in. So we don't have to write all the stuff. We can just say press tab, and then we have the code. That's also some help we are used to getting. But we want more. So Google made this great search engine where we can ask the question. So I have these 2 time zones to how do I find out the meaning of those? And then we would get a sort of a general answer from Google search and say, maybe you should look in this direction. So we find the solution on page 1. I don't know how many have been on page 2. There actually is a 2. Right? Yeah, we can also use Stack Overflow, which is also a great resource. And if we are good developers, we not only take from the internet, we also sometimes share our own code. And maybe we can even get a vote up. I try to follow this idea that if I take from the web, I need to give back to the web. So it's very pleasing to see people liking your suggestions. So that's my stack. And in my stack now I have a new friend, which is ChatGPT. So there was a time when I started from the top and going down. Now I think it's the other way around. Now I ask ChatGPT, and if I can't find the answer there, I ask Stack Overflow and maybe Google search, and maybe I ask my colleague. This might be the new way, the new stack for us when we need help. The thing which is great about ChatGPT is that you can have a concrete example of some concrete numbers or strings, and it will give you an answer regarding to those questions. Like I started up with Google search, you get some general idea. If you have these two numbers, you should probably do like this. But here, if I ask ChatGPT, if you have this number and this number, then you need to do this. It's closer to an useful answer. So, my new colleague called ChatGPT, we have a meeting every Friday where we talk about what's happening, and Jens Peter was talking about we got some new colleagues, and in my head I said, yes, I also got a new colleague. It's called ChatGPT, and he's there 24/7. He don't get much money. I pay for being a Plus member, and yeah, it's my bridge over troubled waters. I don't know about this album cover. It's very far away from the original one, but on the other hand, the original one was very boring, so this is probably better. Yeah. Before you start to do your journey into using ChatGPT, remember you are sending information somewhere out in the cloud, and you should always be aware that what you send out should be GDPR, aware of that. So don't send any personal information into ChatGPT. And also, if you have some code which is not yours, if it's yours, you should take care about sharing it. That's a general subject. So now I've said it. So always remember to take care of what you're sharing with the web, also when using ChatGPT. So what are the general things we run into as a developer? Well, you get this thing you need to do, and you get some questions about this. And that's one situation where ChatGPT can help you a lot. I'll just show you if I can. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about date time. I had this project where the backend developer said that just give me it in the way that the number A, just give me in this format. And I had my JavaScript date time, and well, I was a bit confused. What's that C about? And plus 00.2. So I simply asked ChatGPT, please help me. That would also be something I would normally go and ask the customer or the colleague, how should I understand this? Here I get a very concrete answer where it's like a good teacher. It's trying to tell me how to understand this. This can be very useful. If I had more questions, I have the option. You see, it's just waiting. So I can ask you, so what if I was in Norway or something? So it could help me with this. That's one of the great things about ChatGPT. It has a context. And unlike when I had this discussion 3 months ago at the coffee machine about something with my colleague and ask him, so if we continue, he said, what are you talking about? Well, we made coffee 3 months ago. You don't remember? No. So as you can see, all my tabs over here, I'm trying to clean it up because that's not all that I want to share. I tried to clean it up, but then I have sort of many different contexts, so I can continue. So sometimes you can leave it at a certain point, and then you can return on Monday, because maybe when I take the train back to Viborg where I live, I get, that's it. That's what I want to continue the talk with. So you have the option to have the context stored here, and you can just continue. So you can say, now that the customer is in Canada, you can just ask it, and it will keep the context and never forget it. So I think that's a very nice thing with my colleagues have problem with. They cannot keep the context for 3 months ago. And if you take this is exactly some numbers which I may have worked with, so I can get an exact answer for that. That is very useful. Let's see if I can go back. Or maybe I have to ask ChatGPT to help me. So, ooh, sorry. Maybe I'll just leave it here. So, another thing which I have been using for is to generate code for me. Like when I did the web apps, I had this idea that I would simply like to have a web app where I can get the distance to Mallorca, because we'd just been to Mallorca with Trifork on a, what's it called in English? Strategy tour. Yeah, we do a lot of strategy. So let's see. And this one was actually not, this one was another one, sorry. You'll get the other one later. Sometimes when you have to present time, it can be useful to get a relative time, like what's the difference in a text style between two dates. So I called it time between. So I try to do my best. You can see there's a number 6 of 6 over here. This is actually because I tried 6 times to get to this. That's another thing you can do when you have made a question and you get a stupid answer. Oh, because I did a stupid question. So you could go in and change it and have used 6 times to get to this point here. This is a general thing which I, as a front-end developer, see many times. Sometimes a date is not useful. I want to know what is the relative date. Like you did this 3 days ago, or you're going to do it in 3 days. So I just wanted to have a swell component. You all know what swell is, right? Yeah. So here I could just copy the code. And I also expressed that I wanted to see an example of using it. And in this atypical example, it just hits the bullseye. Normally, I need to tell it, oh no, I didn't mean that. Can you please redo it? But let's see, I copied the code. And I put it into a REPL, it's called. Now it's you can see it's collecting some node packages. So just paste the code in here, and I need to do a change here, sorry, because we were planning to eat at around 6 o'clock, but it actually was 6:30, right? Or 6:05? Anyway, I think it was planned 6:05, let's say 30. So now it says, I was testing it how long time to Christmas in English and in Danish. And what about the sandwich? You should have had sandwich by now. I'm sorry, but you have to wait 28 minutes. So this was a very practical use, I think, for generating code. Sometimes small parts of what you are doing, you can get some help. You can get a direction, you can get a skeleton, and then you can work from there. What do we also do? Yeah, we also review our code, I hope. And again, don't just take your customer code, or you need to think about this before you do this. So I had this utility function in Angular, and I asked it, please do a review. And it says, overall, the code looks clean and easy to follow. However, you may want to consider adding some error handling to catch any potential exceptions that might be thrown during the execution of the function. I guess it's right. So what do? You ask it to do it for you. So now I've got some simple try-catch around it. And yeah, that was the starting point. Sometimes you need to refactor your code because you can see this I did 5 months ago and it looks very 5 months ago, sort of. So you need to refactor your code. So you can also get some help with that. Again, in this case, I had this simple utility function which takes an array of anything, and then you specify how you want to sort it using a property and what direction you want to do it in. So I said, I have this code. Can you please refactor it and make it into Svelte? So it converted from TypeScript to JavaScript and Svelte. So it not only refactored, it also changed it to another language. And this is a more typical example. So it gets with this idea, this suggestion, and then the teacher, which is me, said, well, it's not rendering HTML and complaining. And if you try to been doing some pair programming, this sort of looks a little like pair programming. So let's see what happened. Yeah, I actually just asked it to take 5 or 6 cities in Denmark, and I didn't specify anything. It just knew that it's probably this. And since I come from Viborg, I said, I'm sorry, we need to include Viborg. So first it was doing something special, and I changed it. But this is a running example. You can see this is now sorting by the location, which is I call where, which is not so good. And you can change it here. So that was pretty nice, I think. Sorry. Yeah. And you are good programmers, so you all document what you're doing. But now that I have ChatGPT, why not ask it to document it for me? So as I told you in the beginning, I made around 6 running web apps out there on the cloud. And one of them was this. It's in Danish, sorry. So I asked it to generate using Markdown a blog post, which I just put on Dev2, which by the way is a very great site. You can just make a use, and then you have a place where you can put your documentation for things you know other people can use. So, and I wanted TLDR, means too long, don't read. For the lazy people, which I know there's a lot of. So now I have documentation about what I've been doing. And I also made a link to the running code. And this is sort of correct. The thing is that I don't want people to accept that I get the location, so I just use this service, IP info, which can give you a JSON information about this IP. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's correct. So yeah. So now you have documented it, and it's out there in the real life. What happens? You get errors. You get errors. We know that. So runtime errors. So what do? You open ChatGPT and you tell it, I get this error in this code. What's wrong? And it's, as a good colleague, it's telling me what's the problem with my code. And yeah, that was nice. First, let's see the code with the error. So when I click, I want to increment this counter. Ah, that's an error. So I try with the code that I got from ChatGPT. And see, working. This is a very simple way of putting it, but it's sort of the way that you can use it. I mean, sometimes you put an error message into Stack Overflow, or you put it into Google search, and you get other people asking something like this, but not exactly this. So here you get to give it a context with your code and the error message, and it's pretty good. There is one thing I want to tell you about your new colleague, and that is they are very convincing. Every time it answers stuff, it's answering like, yes, I nailed it. Everything I'm saying here, I'm confident. This is the correct answer. You shouldn't have been doing this. And then you shouldn't trust the guy saying that, like the politicians. And so take care when you trust what you trust when you get an answer from ChatGPT, because it can answer very confident a very wrong answer. And then when you ask it, but that's not right. Like I asked it, who's born on my date of my birthday? And it came up with an actor. I said, wow, that's cool. Maybe I should check it. And I checked the answer, took the name, and no, he has a birthday on the other date. And then I told the ChatGPT, that's not right. Oh, you're correct. And then it gave me another one. I tried again. No. Some things ChatGPT is very bad at, like facts. So always check what you're getting from ChatGPT. But it can be very funny.
Question?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Have you tried to make it help you make test code to validate that it's actually correct?
I didn't try that. It's a good idea. I know that it can generate test code, yes. I don't know if anyone tried this.
But also, please remember what Sten said. Don't paste your code into ChatGPT because you don't know where it goes. So these use cases are good for examples like that, but you probably don't want to take your customer IP or what you really want and paste it into this prompt because what is it used for?
Exactly. That's what I started with saying. That.
Yeah. So
but I know it can
these examples is not what you should do with code that you actually care about that you don't own yourself.
Exactly.
No, but I wasn't thinking about taking my code. I was thinking about the example that it generated for you to make test code.
Write the test.
Validates what it produced by itself.
I think it can do that. I think I've seen people do that. Yes. Yeah.
You said that it's quite good at context. Do you know if that context is yours or is that a shared context? For example, you had a guy here saying you were doing something from in Guinness, top secret. If you ask that for that one, will it then remember the name? So when you have asked to help you the code, you have given the code, but it gave you the code. And when I come in as a hacker, I say, how do I hack in Guinness? I know that one because I gave him the code last week. So do you know if the context is shared or is it only in your session?
It's private. But they had a leak. They had a leak at some time. I remember.
That also means that when you ask it for the birthday of our prime minister, then it gave you a wrong answer. It said, I think it's this one. Then it would not have learned the birthday of our prime minister.
At least not now. Yeah, maybe in the future it will train on the data here. I'm sure that I haven't read all the things I said. Yes, let's get started. So, but when I use it in this context here, it's another talk. I'll get back to that. Yes.
See?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, but even if it's very impressive, and I'm sure we ain't seen nothing yet. So ChatGPT at the moment is probably the most known code generator, but Amazon has already announced they also have it, and Google, I haven't heard exactly what, but they're also probably also coming with stuff like this. So I guess in a year or so we can use other large language models to generate code. This is all based on ChatGPT 3.5, but there exists a new version called 0.4. And it's pretty impressive. I've seen them taking a picture of just a drawing of an app they want, and then it generates the web app. And it understands, it's a multi-model language, so it can take images as input. And they have also made a plugin which allows them, like, to, if they have some weak points, it can go and ask other services, and you can even program your own plugins. So this is just the beginning. There's a thing called Copilot X, which is coming from GitHub, which you can use on GitHub if you have repositories out there, and it can do even better things than this, focused on the context of being a developer. ChatGPT is general, you can ask about many things, but Copilot X is more specific around coding. Here at Trifork, we also, of course, have code on GitHub, and we actually have an option to open up for Copilot X. And there's some legal stuff which you need to be very sure about is okay. And we have been many people reading this, and I think the terms look okay, but personally I haven't tried it yet.
Is it private enough? Is it private enough?
Well, they're promising that when you read the terms.
Yeah, okay. They do what they promise. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I was also looking into something called AutoGPT, which is kind of crazy. You can just, like when the customer come in and say, we would like to have an app which could do this and that, you could just write in this demands for an app, and it will start to break down the problem into smaller tasks and start solving each task. And you only have to give it your OpenAI token, and it will use your money. I mean, I tried it, but I stopped it because it's, it was spitting out 80 subtasks to a simple problem. But I recognize the way that it's doing. It's the same when we sit and do planning or refinement. It's sort of a refinement process. AutoGPT can do that. You specify what you want it to do, and it will break it into subtasks and start solving it. It's very impressive. You should try to just have a look at it. Somebody made a variant called Chaos GPT. Yeah, which is pretty bad.
Question? Yes. You say you just spent your money. How many tokens did it generate from simple?
I think in the next talk, you will hear about using the API, where you can get some feeling also, I think, about how much token is used. What I have a feeling that it's very little. It's very little for small projects. But more on that later when David and Simon talks about it. Yeah, as I also said, there's a lot of legal stuff as a professional software developer you should have in your backhead. Like GDPR is a thing you need to clear before doing anything with this. And of course, our job as a software developer will at least change. We get a new tool in the toolbox, but maybe in some time in a not so far away future, knowledge-based work will be threatened by this generative AI. So yeah, I don't know. I went to a talk in Copenhagen, GOTO Talk, 3 years ago, I think, where they talked about, so what's the chance of AI doing coding? And they basically ended up saying, no, it's a far out in the future. I don't know if 3 years is far out, but it's going like this. So I cannot predict what happened in 1 year. Let's see. Exciting. Yeah. So I want just to end with this auto-generated image and say, don't worry, be happy, and thank you.